and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is Pink the Black Live, and I am Dan Selke of winnerscoming.net here with Mia Johnson of dorksideoftheforce.com. We come to you every week to bring you the news you need to know, as long as that news involves, space lasers, dragons, television, movies, this sort of thing. Mia, I am fine today. How are you?
That's an inadequate answer, Dan. I'm fine today, but a little birdie tells me today's your birthday. So, happy birthday. How are you enjoying it so far?
It's miserable, Mia. I am past the point where I'm excited for my birthday, and now each one is another marker on my slow march toward the grave. But thanks for asking.
I love starting the show off with this energy, Dan. This is amazing.
I do too. I mean, no, but birthdays, I don't know. I was never a huge birthday person. It's like, I don't know, it always seemed to be like, why am I getting, I don't get a presents, but all I did was like, I didn't have anything to do with my own birth. I don't know, it's a whole thing. But yes, thank you very much.
Sure.
I appreciate it. And all the well
Yay.
very nice. And if any of you out there want to give me a birthday wish, I appreciate that. Hi, Julie. Good to see you. Julie won, I think, this month's WiC Club prize. If any of you want in on that, we can post some stuff in that later. Also, if I look better in the lights, because I have a new ring light, I'd show you it, but it's attached to the camera, which is why I look like a supermodel emerging from a mist.
Yeah.
All right.
Hollywood movie star. You've got the haircut. It's your birthday. You're
great
really doing a thing.
Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. And today we're going to talk about a couple of things. We got Superman reboot coming. We got WandaVision review. We got Raya and the Last Dragon review. But first, I wanted to start off with, where we live in Game of Thrones land, and note some interesting news is coming out lately about Mr. George R.R. Martin, author of A Song of Ice and Fire, creator of Game of Thrones, elderly person who has written 1,000 things over his long career. And I mention that because lately, in the past week and a half, we have learned that George R.R. Martin is making a show for HBO called Road March, adaptation of an old Roger Zelazny novel. He's also producing with Tessa Thompson a kind of post-apocalyptic Sudanese fantasy novel. Cool. And then apart from that, there are two independent movies going into production that adapt stories of his that he has nothing to do with. Like, he's not producing these at all. It's just Hollywood deciding we want to make these George R.R. Martin stories. There's one that is Sandkings, a 1979 novelette. And by the way, I love the difference between a novel, a novella, and a novelette for this, if you want to know. And a short story called Sandkings. He wrote it in 79. It sounds pretty cool. It's about guy on a foreign planet who collects exotic pets, and he collects some pets that he abuses, and they get out and they, serve him his just desserts. It sounds pretty twisted and cool. Yeah. That's going to be made for Netflix by Gore Verbinski, who you might remember as the guy behind the 3 good Pirates of the Caribbean movies.
Okay, I'll take it.
Yeah, sure. Why not? That's fine. And then Paul W.S. Anderson, who is the guy behind the Resident Evil movies, the guy behind, I'm sure other stuff, but he made 6 of those things. Oh, that Monster Hunter that just came out is going to adapt In the Land of the Lost. I'm sorry, The Lost Lands. That's a different thing. Which is kind of a Sword and Sorcery 82 thing with Mila Jovovich and Dave Bautista. And again, these are not Martin-produced things. These are things that are being made based on his work from decades ago by independent producers. And I thought it was just interesting to look at that and think about, well, maybe I'll ask you, and I'll warn you, there is a correct answer to this question, at least as I think so. Why do you think suddenly such an interest in non-Game of Thrones properties written by George R.R. Martin?
In non-Game of Thrones properties? I don't know. I feel like I haven't studied for this quiz. I mean, off the top of my head, of course, I think that it is just kind of his name recognition that people, basically I think since Game of Thrones had done so well, people just automatically trust that, he can do and write anything else that he pleases. And I mean, he has, but now to see it be adapted, they're like, well, if it's from George R. R. Martin, then, why not? So, I mean, that would make sense to me. Just slap his name on something and it is from him. So, can't go wrong.
Oh, totally. There's something almost lazy about it, in that, like, he had this giant hit, Game of Thrones,
Uh-huh.
and then naturally people are going to just sort of use it as a shorthand of, well, that was a success. Let's have anything else he did is a success too. It reminds me of, like, remember the 90s? You probably don't remember the 90s. Remember the 90s, like, Hollywood could not make enough, like, John Grisham legal thrillers. Like, he had one hit, this guy, and suddenly it's like The Pelican Brief, The Firm, Christmas with the Cranks. Like, everything he wrote got made into a movie, regardless of whether it would make a good one. And some of them didn't. Or like Stephen King. Like, think about that.
Yeah.
Like, how many movies are there of Stephen King things? Like from Cujo to Pet Cemetery to Carrie to The Shining to Doctor Sleep to, like, his minor stuff, his major stuff. It all gets adapted. And sometimes I think it's not so much because it's, he has brilliantly bracing new original work all the time, because people know it. People know the name.
Yeah.
They know the name and they know the brand, and that is gold in Hollywood.
Yeah.
You want that familiarity. So it does seem like late in his life, George R.R. Martin is kind of becoming a go-to source for creative material. People can just kind of mine and just take his ideas. Not so much because they're the best ideas. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure the stories are very good.
Yeah.
But because they're there and people know something about them now that they know the author. It's kind of like a Hollywood heuristic shorthand for creative development.
Jeez. No, yeah, when you put it that way, it makes sense. I can see it kind of being like, because I have never heard of these other novels or novellas or whatever you've called it before. So, they've not kind of invaded pop culture the way that they have, even kind of like the Game of Thrones novels has. So, yeah, in one sense, it does make you wonder, are these worth adapting for the screen? I don't doubt that they'll find a way to make it interesting, to say the least. But yeah, it is like, in any other circumstance, if, like, had Game of Thrones not happened at all, would you have adapted this?
Would you get Sandkings on there somehow? I doubt it.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It just shows, like, how opportunity driven and almost luck driven the industry is. There's lots of great work out there, but folk like what they know, and that's fine. And of course, he's also doing some things for HBO and working with Winter. I'm sure he's doing other stuff, but good for him for having a late in life renaissance of his work.
Yeah, why not?
And by the way, do you want to know the difference between a short story, a novella, a novelette, and a novel? Because there are differences.
Yeah, humor me, please.
Okay, great. All right. So it's just length. Short story is the shortest, and then a novelette, and then a novella, and then a novel. That's the order. If you ever need to know that in the future, any of you out there, that you're welcome for the information.
Excellent. I always need to keep my pen and paper around so I can take notes.
And thank you, Joni, for having a great birthday. And of course, it says money, which is, more or less it. Familiarity is good for the ticket sales. All right. So after that brief detour in George R. R. Martin land, some cool stuff happening this week. So, I forgot about that. Oh, also, George R. R. Martin is making that new video game Elden Ring from the Dark Souls people, which had a trailer leaked, which is also kind of, just get his name on there. Why not?
Yeah, why?
It's like sports and stuff.
Yeah.
Also, a brief shout out to Indira Varma for joining the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. She played Ilaria Sand, of course, in Game of Thrones. That's cool. She's good. She's a solid actress. Brings a lot of passion and verve. Any idea who she might play, Star Wars expert?
There was a listing, kind of like a casting call listing I had seen like a month or two, more than 2 months ago. That said they needed sort of like a companion for Obi-Wan. I don't know if this was like a villain or just kind of a right-hand woman sort of thing. So she might be that. Some people think I don't know if she would be Duchess Satine as someone who was like in the Clone Wars and was like Obi-Wan's love interest. I don't know if she'll be that. I think she'll be probably a completely separate character who I don't know might be like a mentor or who knows. We come across all sorts of characters.
All sorts of crazy people in that Star Wars world. But yeah, cool for her. I mean, it's funny that I noticed that like the characters from House Martell seem to be doing really, really well between her and Pedro Pascal, who played, of course,
Yeah.
her lover, Oberyn Martell, also killing it over in Star Wars. That's fine. You got the Game of Thrones veterans you want. Okay, moving on. We heard this week that, you know, Hollywood loves its reboots. Actually, you know what? Before we go on to the next section, how about we have a word from our sponsor? Okay. Okay, everybody. Please stand by for paid advertisement. Okay. Imagine you're in a wood. It's dark, overgrown, crowded with angry brambles and thorns that bite and pierce. If only you had a weapon to cut through this oppressive thicket and let the forest breathe again. And lo, now you do, with the Manscaped Lawnmower 3.0, the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Trusted by millions of men worldwide, Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your sensitive grooming needs. If you're interested in joining the Brotherhood of the Forest Clearing, we have an exclusive offer, 20% off, plus free shipping with the code FANSIDED20 at manscaped.com. And the mighty lawnmower is not all Manscaped has to offer. There is also Manscaped deodorant to keep the forest feeling fragrant, and also Manscaped toner to tone it. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code FANSIDED20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code FANSIDED20.
You're here.
Okay. So our next topic was going to be, thank you, Christian. Superman, icon, superhero, flies to the sky, faster than a speeding bullet, stronger than a locomotive, something like that. Obviously a hugely iconic character, DC superhero, around for like 30,000 years. He's been on the big screen recently as Henry Cavill, British man, playing an American icon, whatever, I'm fine with it. And they just announced, or it was leaked or whatever, that there's going to be another go at it. Because I don't think it's that big of a stretch to say that the Henry Cavill Superman, he's liked, but I don't think he ever quite like cracked the upper ceiling on the box office the way Warner Brothers quite wanted him to. Like he never became like as beloved as Downey Jr.'s Iron Man or Chris Evans's Captain America or anything, even though he like has the name recognition kind of over either of them. It's almost embarrassing, really. Anyway, Warner Brothers is making a reboot. And yes, Julie, I understand that you'll pass. That makes perfect sense. I hope you enjoyed the performance. They're going to make a Superman reboot. They hired writing Ta-Nehisi Coates, who wrote Black Panther comics, American comics, and best known for nonfiction books like The Beautiful Struggle Between the World and Me. And okay, J.J. Abrams is behind it. He is, of course, a big fan of reboots. Rebooted Star Trek, rebooted Star Wars, all the man does. Mia, what do you make of this information? What do you think of this?
I think it's an interesting act. It's weird because I am both excited and a little, I don't know if I want to call it Superman fatigued. It seems to me that, I don't know. I think I was just so disappointed with the last iteration. I like Henry Cavill, though. He makes a good Superman. He's hot. I mean, I can't complain about that. But it was just the way that character was handled from the beginning, which I think is kind of due to, as we were talking about last week with Zack Snyder, I think it was kind of due to that characterization of creating him as like a god who doesn't fit into this world, when in fact, you know, he grew up in the middle of Kansas. He's basically been human all his life. So it never really made sense why you would make Superman this kind of like god of another world when he's, you know, basically as human as it gets.
Never loved that stuff. And I'm sure it'll all be corrected in the Snyder Cut on March 18th.
Yeah. So we get to see that one last iteration, but yeah, it is interesting to see kind of this comic book writer come in and possibly reshape how we tell the Superman story. I know there were some rumors about like Michael B. Jordan potentially doing the role, and while I love Michael B. Jordan, I think he left a bad taste in my mouth after the Fantastic Four. I loved him as Eric Killmonger as a villain, but as kind of like as a cheesy superhero, I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if that's gonna work with him.
I mean, I would not blame the faults of whatever Fox did with that bungling on any of the actors, really.
Well,
Chris Evans was in a Fantastic Four movie too, and he ended up making
oh yeah. I do have a friend though, and she kind of criticized me for, you know, kind of liking Michael B. Jordan, and she says, yeah, the B stands for bad actor, and I was like, come on. That's not nice.
Really? Michael B. Jordan? Like Creed?
It depends. It depends on like the movie and where his head is at and all of that. But you know, I'm willing to give this a chance. You know, they're bringing a black writer, which is awesome. I can't be mad at that. And it looks like they're gonna really want to tell a rich story with that as well. So I'm definitely open. I'm not just gonna be like, no, I don't want this Superman movie. But this is me saying I hope you guys get it right this time.
I mean, let's talk about that aspect, because the word is that they're intending to make this not just a black writer, but like a black Superman. They want to cast a black actor as Superman.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it hasn't been done on the big screen. I imagine it's been done in some comics somewhere, because comics do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Have any feelings about that?
I don't know. Yeah, it's again, I'm just kind of willing to go with the flow. I don't know any of the kind of background with that. Like if it will be kind of like who is it, Kal-El? Like if it'll be the same character, but he just happens to be black, or if it'll be something where it's like Anthony Mackie as Falcon ends up assuming the role of Captain America, but he's not like Steve Rogers. Or even like Miles Morales, right? Miles Morales isn't Peter Parker, but he happens to be Spider-Man. So that might be the way that they go with this. And then that'll be another interesting story as well. Like I said, I'm not like brushed up on the DC lore and all that, but again, it could be interesting.
I wonder if they might do it like they did like with the Joker movie with because they have this whole thing now where they can kind of do they tried for years to be Marvel and it just didn't work.
Yeah.
They're trying to like make this big giant universe. And then they seem to have more success with like doing this like kind of standalone projects where they're kind of take place in their own thing. Like they're replacing Ben Affleck as Batman, and I don't think they're going to act like it's a continuation of the old one. It's just going to be something new.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like some of them, like Aquaman and Wonder Woman, still like now take place in the same thing, but it's much looser now. So I wonder if they can just like we can make a Superman movie with this actor, and we can do it, and they make a trilogy. But it doesn't all have to like, it doesn't, don't seem to have the burden of linking everything up perfectly and making sure it all flows like Marvel does, which for them works beautifully. Obviously it has been for a while now, but like they tried it, it didn't work. And I think now they might just be, I mean, it can be a good thing because you're more open to experimentation and trying different stuff like this. Mm-hmm. Like if you were stuck with Cavill, whether you wanted him or not. By the way, Julie agrees with you that he's hot, but something just not right with the story. This could kind of open you up to like, okay, that didn't work. Let's pivot a bit, rather than like trying to be Kevin Feige and like this didn't work, but how do we like justify that being in the next thing and like find an explanation for this that didn't quite work but shifted around again? Mm-hmm. It's like Zack Snyder was never that guy. He was never that guy. He was never the detail-oriented super nerd just going to like, you know, like just like take it with like a little like tiny little instruments, like make sure everything works like a clock. He just isn't that person. He is Joker Jesus person. He is big giant image and statement person. He was not that guy. Yeah, so if you want to keep employing folk like that, just have them do their own thing for each movie rather than trying to clean it all up. Yeah,
so a little more. I think if they can make the character a little more like very much so down to earth in many senses of the word, and And yeah, just kind of, Marvel does that well, where it's like, these are superheroes, but as we will talk about in WandaVision, like they do have their own problems that are very much human and that we can relate to. Whereas, yeah, the whole kind of Snyder verse that was being created was just like, we're superheroes and we don't know what the heck is going on Earth. And that just sort of happened to be the plot. So yeah, the more I talk about it, the more I am a little more optimistic. I'm willing to give them another shot and see how they work things out.
Speaking of WandaVision, want to head on over to that to Westview?
Yeah. Oh, what did we have? There was a note about Superman and Lois. I've been hearing a lot of good things about that.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah. Getting so it's renewed for a second season.
Oh yeah, like 2 days after the premiere happened. So
yeah.
I mean, Superman is kind of a weird one to get right. It seems like Hollywood's had a trouble like getting him to stick.
Yeah.
Wild. Like I remember when they tried that thing with Brandon Ruth years ago.
Yeah.
Like it kind of like went like sort of nowhere-ish. Meanwhile, Christian Bale's Batman is like becoming like an icon or whatever.
Yeah.
They just can't seem to get him quite right. And sure, try something new.
I wonder if it's like with the Arrowverse and the CW, it's a lot cheesier and you can have a lot more fun with it. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if that's just kind of been the appealing thing, is that they can just kind of let it go and be like that comic book TV show where, there's a lot of kind of excitement, but it's still kind of like, oh, this is so weird or so crazy. But yeah, good for them. I've been seeing it blow up on my timeline, so that's awesome.
I might watch it. We'll see what happens. I believe it's on HBO Max. Anyway, over on Disney Plus, we are of course watching WandaVision, which is, I mean, it's definitely the first big hit of 2021. Like a lot of folk are talking about it. It definitely, to me, this definitely proves the strength of like the once a week model. I know not everyone here likes it, but like everyone, they can't shut up about it. And Disney must just be loving it. The analytics came out, it's like crushing everything else. It crushed Bridgerton, and that thing was huge for a while. And that all came out at once. And now it's over, and it can't keep competing. If they'd done it, Netflix is kicking itself, what I'm telling you. Anyway, most recent episode, previously on, all these TV puns, love it, was sort of a let's go back into Wanda's past episode, what we set up the finale, and I loved it. I thought this, last week I was concerned that bringing in Agatha Harkness as sort of the villain who was pulling the strings was going to absolve Wanda of responsibility, but it didn't, right? I mean, it ended up that she did everything. She created everything. She's still torturing people, which is unfortunate. But and Agatha was just attracted by it and infiltrated. And I thought, like, yeah, we did, of course, want to learn how all this went down, how she created this sitcom universe she's now inhabiting. And I thought it was, something I wanted to see, and moving it a lot of the time. Like, look, I can relate to being young and putting a lot of stock in TV shows, shocker, and liking them a lot, and then find with them and having nostalgia for them. Like, that's something I can get on board with. Yeah. So I was honestly like, oh, Wanda, I get it. You go ahead and torture those people. not like that. But I was entertained, and I thought it assuaged my fears that I had about the series kind of bottoming out.
That's good. Yeah, I wanted to message you, and then I was like, no, we'll talk about it on the show, because I was like, oh, this definitely makes up for last week's episode. I felt that last week's episode it's tied for me between 7 and 3 is kind of like the least strongest. It feels bad to say the worst, but the least strongest of the episodes. This one and the pregnancy one, I was like, okay. But no, they so redeemed themselves in this episode 8, and it was so emotional. It caught me off guard. I didn't expect for it to go, that deep into Wanda's life, and kind of having us, really sympathizing and empathizing with her about everything that she's done in the short amount of time that all this took place. But what had really interested me was, this spin on like she did it, but now it's really hard to blame her. And I was like, I feel like, you really have to put the blame on Wanda. Like, she's doing this, she's holding people against their will and da 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 da. But then when they build up this story and show you, how much pain she's gone through, the trauma, the people she's lost, it's like, I can't, there's nothing I can say about that anymore. It's kind of just like, she to me isn't the bad guy anymore.
Well, I mean, I agree, and I also disagree with myself because I mean, most people who do bad things, like no one's twirling their mustache and trying to be evil. Maybe like Agatha is, I guess, but like in the real world, in my experience, most people who do bad things, they're not purposefully trying to bring evil into the world. I mean, you have explanations for what you do. I still think accountability is a positive thing, especially given what we've seen her doing. But I think this makes it stronger, not weaker, that we understand where someone's coming from. Like, someone's always coming from somewhere, unless they're a sociopath, which most people aren't. Yeah, Wanda is not. I loved how they were like they are milking honest to God feels out of like Malcolm in the Middle gags of Bryan Cranston being crushed by an awning. Like that's impressive. And also I wonder like how they got the rights to use those clips, or whether those DVD sales are going to go up. Like the Dick Van Dyke show. Dick Van Dyke's going to get some like royalties.
Yeah.
98 years old or whatever he is now, to buy himself some gum.
Well, they got Dick Van Dyke. He's, sort of Disney family with Mary Poppins. It feels like, what is that? Not the Bryan Cranston show. Malcolm in the Middle was a Fox property, but I don't know for sure. But hey, I mean, if Disney wants to offer you some money to use your clips, you say, oh yes, of course. I like there's so many things I liked about this. The little comparisons, like the Dick Van Dyke episode where it was kind of showing you, what was going on in that specific episode she liked, and then comparing it to like all the stuff we had seen Wanda do and how she dressed up. I was like, oh, that is such a cool like attention to detail.
It was like, there is detail in this show.
Yeah.
Someone like those dots just kind of connect and bridge, for any show. But this one was always built on like being a puzzle you put together. And this definitely filled in a bunch of pieces. And it's just so satisfying when something like this goes plop right there, kind of where there's an empty shape, but you don't know what goes there.
Exactly. Boop, boop, boop. The other thing or did you have something to say?
No, go on.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say the other thing I really wasn't expecting them to explore in the series at all was kind of the origin of her powers. Because we had always assumed that it was just like, she touched the Mind Stone and that's how she got her powers. They, manipulated her and all this stuff. But then as you kind of saw like what Hydra was doing, it was like, well, yeah, they had probably a handful of test subjects and they couldn't handle the amount of energy that was emitting off of the Mind Stone until Wanda came. And so why is that? Oh, because she's a magic witch and, she's the Scarlet Witch. And I was like, oh, that is such a satisfying answer.
Words.
What's that?
Just the bit where like, you're the Scarlet Witch. Like, oh, she said it.
She said the thing. Which when they said at the beginning, I think this was like episode 3 or 4, when they were kind of getting the rundown at the base of who Wanda is. They were like, she doesn't have like any sort of alias or, superhero name. And they were like, no. And I was like, yeah, that's right. I didn't think that was going to be paid off by this episode. That just like completely blew me away. And I love like the little vision, or like when she saw herself like coming out of the, sparkling golden light. I was like, oh, that is so awesome. So yeah, it's one of my favorite episodes, and it feels weird. It's like, how are they going to top it?
Yeah, very, very strong. I mean, again, like I said before, Marvel pays attention to detail. They are all about, the way that Zack Snyder at DC is all about just smashing you with images of the Joker with a crown of thorns on his head, or in a straitjacket, or like whatever slow-mo thing he can do next. Not that that's bad, just very, very different.
It is.
You play to your strengths.
Yeah. There's one, I don't know if you want to call it a plot hole or kind of like a goof or something that, we learned that Wanda did. She was like building up her house in Westview, New Jersey, which, oh my God, my heart, which was where they were going to live. And we were like, oh, Westview is a real town. We're seeing like all the people who were the neighbors and blah, blah, blah. But when we first saw, who's it, Agent Jimmy Woo, he was like, or whoever it was, they were like, this town, it doesn't exist. It just showed up. But Westview, we found out in this episode that Westview was a real town. So I'm kind of wondering.
I thought that was because like the policemen were forgetting stuff because she was messing with their brains or something.
It seems like a stretch, but I mean, it could work. Yeah, I was like, no one has, able to pull up their Google Maps and see that this place does exist and go back in time and see that it does still exist. Go to your local library and see that it does exist. No, I'm joking.
Was there a reason that Vision bought her a plot of land in this random Jersey town? I mean, it was a very emotional sequence, but I was like, also, you like, how much are they paying you at the Avengers? That's all you can afford, whatever.
I mean, they're pretty popular, so I guess a pretty penny. And I guess it kind of was like, they really just wanted to move away and make a life for themselves in the short amount of time that they were together.
It was very, very strong, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it wraps up next week.
Yeah.
The show's been great, and if it can stick the landing, I have every hope that it will be a terrific classic to remember. To retire in, says Christian. Yeah, but like she was like 30 or like 29. I don't know. Like, I don't know. If I was with somebody and they're like, we're going to move to a tiny, small town, like small town America is not doing too hot. Whatever. I'm overthinking this.
She's from Sokovia. You saw her living conditions. That would have been a glow up, in many senses.
Possibly. Anyway, I liked it a lot. And Mia, I think you also watched, is it out already or is it coming out soon?
In 2 days.
2 days? Cool. The new Disney animated feature, Raya and the Last Dragon, or Raya and the Last Dragon?
Raya, yeah.
The Last Dragon. What'd you think?
Yeah, this was awesome. So yeah, Raya and the Last Dragon is the next Disney animated movie that they have out, from used to be 2D animation like Mulan and Cinderella. Now they're doing 3D animation. So with stuff like Moana and Frozen and Tangled. Yes.
Is that a consistent team? Is like the same people who worked on Mulan or Aladdin or whatever, like Prince and the Frog, like now doing 3D animation, or are they like different teams?
I don't know if the specific people around, but it is, the clarification is that it's Walt Disney Animation Studio. So it's not Pixar, like Pixar does 3D animation too, but it is still technically the same. I went on Wikipedia to make sure it's the same studio that has done like all those other it's like Snow White. Yeah. All the way back to then. So yeah, this one was really, it's basically just as charming and enchanting as pretty much every other Disney movie you're going to watch. It almost has a plot. Like I said, I've never watched Avatar, but it almost felt like the plot, like long ago, the nations were all together until the Fire Nation attacked. It is kind of like this, where there are these 5 nations that lived in harmony. And then this terrible disaster happens, and now they all live apart, fighting one another. And after this disaster strikes, it's basically up to Raya to like find this mystical gem that'll hopefully help to wipe out this plague, and also find the last dragon, who is like magical enough to help put the gem back together and help to, like I said, wipe it out and bring peace. So yeah, Raya is played by Kelly Marie Tran, who played Rose Tycho. I don't know if it's Tico or Tycho, but Rose from The Last Jedi in Star Wars. And when the last dragon comes, we've got Awkwafina, who plays the dragon Sisu, who's really kind of like that Olaf character. Dory, who's like the lovable oaf. And then along the way, there's like Benedict Wong from Doctor Strange. Daniel Day Kim is her father. Sandra Oh plays like this evil queen who's out to get her. And Gemma Chan as well plays the evil queen's like daughter, who's like always sparring with Raya. So it's a packed cast. It's a really fun adventure. And it's got like all that emotion that you'll find in a Disney movie. And to add on top of that, kind of the influence of Southeast Asian culture, like Thailand and places in that area. So it's definitely new. It's not your old Disney movie. There's no singing.
I was going to ask.
Yeah. No singing. It took me a minute to get used to it because I'm like waiting for the songs to happen and there's no songs. But yeah, it's really good. It took like 15-ish minutes for me to warm up to the movie, but once they kind of got into it, I was like, okay, I'm feeling it. So, um, yeah, I would.
Songs. I'm sorry, just I don't know. When I think like Disney animated movies, I think musicals. Like,
Yeah.
have they done many that are just like no songs at all?
Yeah, I was like in recent memory. I don't, because even Moana had songs. Of course, Frozen had songs. My only guess is they were using like the Frozen writers are like writing all the songs for WandaVision, so they were too busy. And maybe Lin-Manuel Miranda was busy too.
You can get those three people. You can't.
Yeah. So yeah, this is out on Disney Plus Premiere Access. So it's that where you have to pay, I believe, like 30 something bucks ish to rent the movie, like they did with Mulan.
Stuff like that, yeah.
And it might have like a limited theatrical release where where theaters are open as well. So, but you can watch it at home.
Did you hear? Okay, and you enjoyed it. If you had to grade it,
Ooh,
letter or a number from 1 to 10, or a
What?
color from black to white, or no, red to teal.
Did I give this an A? Let me see on my review. Yeah, I gave it a solid A.
All right, there you go.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of hard not to give it something lower than that.
Sounds good. By the way, as Christian says, bringing it back a little bit earlier, you don't want to retire in Jersey anyway. Taxes will kill you. Taxes will get you. I have a brother living in Jersey right now. He does complain about that a lot. Did you hear that Disney CEO Bob Chapek was talking at some kind of conference, and just basically he didn't say anything specific, but he was like, yeah, there's probably no going back to the old way we did movies, where we release them into theaters and they're there for a while and then we put them somewhere else. It sounds like he's on board with the whole plan of at least periodic releases straight to streaming, even after the pandemic is fully over.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it just seems inevitable at this point. And if you want to see a movie in the theaters, if you're feeling safe or when it's safe, I think, you will. I don't think you would be like, oh, I don't want to go. Because it's still an event. It's like, I want to go out. I want to see it on the big screen. And like last week when I saw Judas and the Black Messiah, it was at the theater. Theaters had opened up here.
Since then.
Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw it on HBO Max, and it was quite good.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it's like having that experience in the big. I was like, whoa! I was so used to seeing, my little, I don't know, 50-inch or whatever this is. That when you see something that's so huge and the bass is booming, it's like, oh, this is such an experience. So I like, being able to have both options.
I do too. I like options, and you're making me miss the theater talking about that stuff. I want to get back there. When I can. Obviously, I will eventually. But yeah, I think options are fine. I think options are good. I think it's inevitable. And I think that history is going to bear out Warner Brothers' decision, despite how many feathers it ruffled, to release everything simultaneously on theaters and HBO Max. I think that decision is looking, frankly, smarter by the day. And I think they'll be vindicated eventually.
Yeah, time will tell.
Right. And that is about all we have to say about all the stuff. Any other comments, queries, interesting things to say?
No, I think that's about it. I'm ready to head into. I'm just ready to see the last episode of WandaVision. I'm just counting down the dates and the hours.
And they're not going to let us wait long. They're having another series honest like that. Mm-hmm. And if you're interested in hearing us in podcast form, we are available on Google Play, iTunes, wherever podcasts are available. And if you want to join the WiC Club, where you can get access to cool prizes, extra articles, extra videos. I believe this week we talked about the anime, The Majesty and Misery is what I titled.
Oh, yes.
That discussion. That was fun. And we gave away a cool Game of Thrones globe puzzle. There's a link right there for that. Otherwise, we stream the show live every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time here on the Winter Screen Facebook page and the Winter Screen YouTube page. So hope to see you back here next week. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Bye.